Hello everyone, it's the Mark Avenue, I'm Eric. California's Great America in Santa Clara, California is a very nice amusement park with 9 roller coasters, and today, I'm ranking them all. It's based on my personal taste, and I think some of the rides here are amazing, and some are not very good. Let's get into them, but before we begin, make sure you subscribe to the channel so you know when new theme park content comes out. I'm working on ranking every Cedar Fair park right now, so be on the lookout for that. And with all of that out of the way, let's begin. Number 9 is Lucy's Crabbie Cabbie. This is the kiddie coaster of the park. It's fine for what it is. I did not actually ride this one because I am too tall to ride a kiddie coaster, and I'm sure the young kids will enjoy this one. Up against the rest of the rides, it's definitely not the big thrilling one that most adults or teenagers are going to be going for, but it's fine for what it is, and I'm sure many would enjoy it if they're in the target audience. Number 8 is Woodstock Express. This is a little bigger than Lucy's Crabbie Cabbie. I find this is pretty much impossible to fit in. I did ride this one with my younger brother, and I did not really fit too easily in the car. My legs are not that long, but they were too long for this. And the ride itself is decently thrilling for the younger thrill seeker. I found the first drop to get a good amount of forces. It's nothing too insane. Definitely one that you should probably skip if you're just an adult going on your own to the park. But the other rides here are the more thrilling ones, and nothing was terrible enough on the list that it was going to rank lower than the kiddie coasters, so I recommend this one for that younger audience, but not really anyone else. Number 7 is Psycho Mouse. The worst of the main rides in the park, this one was a bit of a letdown. After riding the clone Mad Mouse at Michigan's Adventure, I thought this would provide some awesome airtime. Unfortunately, it is somewhat trimmed, and the brakes on this ride mean you don't get as many great forces. It's not an awful Wild Mouse coaster, the turns are not janky, it's pretty just run-of-the-mill. So I think this one's only worth riding if you get a short line, which you have to be a little lucky for, because this ride's capacity is terrible. Number 6 is Grizzly, the older wooden roller coaster in the park. Many consider it one of the worst roller coasters in the world. They say it is somewhat rough and incredibly boring. They are fairly correct about that second part. This ride is fairly boring. There is one moment where you get thrown out of your seat a little, but other than that, there is not much airtime. And I find the forces and intensity are not particularly present at any point on this roller coaster. It's not a super rough ride. I think there's a bit of jolt to it at points that wasn't super enjoyable, but I like the ride enough. It's not a bad ride. It's just kind of eh. And I do recommend getting one ride on it if you go to the park. Number 5 is Patriot. Patriot was once a stand-up roller coaster. This model has kind of faded out of existence, though, and it became a floorless coaster a little while back. And of the stand-up turned floorless rides I've been on, this one is the best. It doesn't have great competition. It's up against Rougarou, which I do not like, and Firebird, which I really do not like. This one is okay. It's not very rough, and the loop gives some pretty good forces. I think it's still kind of not great in the floorless coaster model because it's a very small layout, built much better for that stand-up coaster model. And I don't love this conversion idea in general, but this is definitely the best that they've done with that so far. Number 4 is Demon. Demon was the biggest surprise of the trip. I liked it. I rode a similar ride, also called Demon, that I thought for a long time was exact clone, but there's been changes from my understanding. And this one was at Six Flags Great America. There's some interesting history there, I can get into that in the comments if you want. But that ride was not very enjoyable, and this one was. I actually definitely recommend you go on this one if you get there. The rides are often known for headbanging from this manufacturer. You'll be quite injured by the time you get off. And the pain is temporary, but it's definitely not a very enjoyable experience. This was an exception. The corkscrews, the final two inversions that is, were not at all painful, and gave some decent hang time. And before that, the ride was fine. There was the occasional moment where you might hit your head against the side of the headrest, but it's not bad. And the ride is certainly well-paced enough and intense enough that I think it's a good experience. And I definitely consider it a good roller coaster, even if it does not compare to the great top 3 in this park. Number 3 is Flight Deck. Flight Deck is a B&M inverted roller coaster. This model is always a treat. These rides are intense, they have great speed, and they flip you upside down several times in different ways. I don't think this is one of the best of inverts out there. It's not even really underrated. but it is good. You have a very strong intensity and speed through the whole thing, especially if you get the back row. The back row I highly recommend on this ride. The inversions are all good. That said, the layout is relatively unspectacular by B&M invert standards for the first half. The second half is more fun. You go over the water and continue that great sense of speed. And the ride is unfortunately pretty short by the standards of the B&M inverts as well. That said, I do think the intensity of this ride being the best aspect definitely carries it in a way that makes it a very strong ride overall. It is a great roller coaster, even if not one of the best. And I do absolutely recommend you get a few rides on this one when you go to the park. Number 2 is Gold Striker. Gold Striker is a GCI wooden coaster, and it is definitely a big step up from flight deck in quality. It is not a perfect roller coaster by any means. The ride can be janky, and when it's not janky, it's mildly underwhelming with forces. However, the ride's first drop is insane. It is in a tunnel, which is already unique, and it takes a 180-degree turn as you go down. And I found it really built up speed. It was an extraordinary experience. After that, you have a handful of good airtime moments, but the main focus of this ride is intensity and forces, something Grizzly did not really provide. And you feel it the whole way through. The ride is immaculately paced, and does not feel particularly short, maybe a bit shorter than something like Mystic Timbers at Kings Island, which is a far superior roller coaster by the way, but it's still a very good ride. I don't think it is the perfect roller coaster. It definitely is janky enough that it somewhat takes away from the experience at points, and I don't think it's as intense as some have said, but it is still a ride that does what it's supposed to do, and does it quite well. So certainly one of the main reasons to visit this park. Number 1 is Railblazer. Railblazer was an easy pick for number 1. There was no doubt in my mind it was going to take the top spot. It is an RMC single rail roller coaster, and these single rails are interesting. This particular one is very short. You have about half a minute of ride time after that lift hill. But it's okay, because it packs in so much. This ride goes around 55 miles per hour from my understanding. It was actually a little bit on the lower end of the 50 mile per hour range, but it does not feel like it's that slow. It flies through elements. The second half is nuts. You're going upside down, inside out, all of that. You're going through tunnels, and it feels incredibly fast. You could be going 70, and honestly, they could have said it was 70, and I would have believed them. The first drop is amazing. It's a very unique one, because you go up just enough that you really slow down at the crest after making the turnaround from the pre-drop, which not many roller coasters have for me. And I was in the front row on one of my rides, so when you're looking down on that, it's kind of terrifying. The inversions all do exactly what they should. The airtime is great. The restraints do not take away from the ride as much as something like Jersey Devil, and it is an elite roller coaster. It is a higher tier RMC roller coaster, which is saying quite a bit. They have so many awesome rides. I highly recommend, if you go to the park, you prioritize getting multiple rides on this. It is the flagship attraction, the reason to go to the park, and if you can get there before the park closes permanently, this should be your priority. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Comment down below your favorite roller coasters in California's Great America, and subscribe for more theme park content, including that Cedar Fair Park ranking. I'll see you next time.